Hello and welcome back to the Instagram for Bosses podcast. I'm Andrea and my mission is to simplify Instagram marketing so you can consistently attract ready to invest clients without having to post every day or living on your phone. Today's episode is one I have been genuinely excited to record. And whether you've been following along this season or this is your very first episode of the podcast, I promise you this one is going to land. Here's the simplest way I can set up what we're going to talk about today. When someone first finds your business on Instagram, they go through a journey before they become a client. First, they discover you and decide whether to follow you. Then, over time, they get to know you, trust you, and start to believe that you can solve their specific problem. And then, if the right content shows up at the right time, they reach out and become a paying client or customer. The content that makes that final thing happen, that convinces a warm follower to actually reach out, is what I call convert content. It's the content that makes someone think, I have to work with them. How do I get started? But here's what most business owners never consider. Not everyone in your warm audience is going to say yes for the same reason. Two people can follow you for 6 months, consume the exact same content, and feel the same level of trust. And when you finally post a piece of content asking them to work with you, one of them reaches out that same day and the other doesn't respond at all. Now, this isn't because one is more interested than the other. It's because they're different types of buyers and the content that tips one over the line does absolutely nothing for the other. So today I'm walking you through exactly how to create Instagram content that converts each type of buyer in your audience. So let's get into it. Before I walk you through the 4 different types of buyers, I want to give you a really simple foundation so that everything makes sense even if you're brand new here. Not everyone in your warm audience is in the same place or needs the same thing. And this is why so much convert content underperforms on Instagram. Because business owners are creating the same style of convert post over and over again. And it's usually the same style that would convince them personally, and then they wonder why only some of their audience is responding. The answer is almost always a buyer type mismatch. Let me break this down further for you. There are 4 buyer types inside every warm audience, and once you understand them, you'll never look at convert content the same way again. The first buyer type is the analytical buyer. Picture a person who's been following you for a few months. They read every one of your captions, watch your reels, and have done their research on you and likely on your competitors too. They're genuinely interested, but they're not going to reach out until they're completely certain that investing in you is the right decision. This is the analytical buyer. They're careful, they're logical, they ask a lot of questions, and they need to see the proof before taking action. What they need from your content is evidence, real numbers, specific results, and a clear explanation of exactly how you work, what you deliver, and what they can expect. They don't need vague promises or inspiration, they need the proof. Here's what that looks like in practice. Say, for example, you run a premium interior design studio. An analytical buyer convert post doesn't just show a beautiful finished room. It walks them through the process. It tells them that every project begins with a full spatial brief and that you work to a defined timeline with clear milestones and that your last 5 residential projects were delivered on time and within the agreed budget. You give them the information they need to feel confident that choosing you is a smart, low-risk decision. A hook for that piece of content might sound something like this. Here's exactly what happens from the moment you book with our studio to the day your space is complete. That is content built for the analytical buyer. Now let's move on to buyer number 2, the human connection buyer. Picture another person in your warm audience. They've also been following you for months, saving your posts and sending your content to their friends. They genuinely feel like they already know you, but they haven't reached out yet because they need something more than proof. They need to feel like you are their person. This is the human connection buyer. They don't just buy the service, they buy the relationship. They need to believe that you genuinely understand their specific situation before they'll trust you. Data and credentials alone will never move this buyer type. Instead, story and humanity is what's going to make the difference. What they need from your content is to feel deeply seen, not described in general terms, but be seen specifically. The content that converts this type of buyer makes them think, she is inside my head. She already understands me before I've even spoken to her. Here's what that looks like in practice. Let's use an example of a boutique wedding planning studio. A human connection buyer convert post tells the story of a specific bride. She came to you completely overwhelmed, 3 venues already viewed and none of them feeling right, a mother with very strong opinions, and a partner who has emotionally checked out of the planning process entirely. You walk through how you navigated that situation, the conversations you had, the decisions you helped her make, and the moment she finally exhaled and said, I've got this. You don't lead with your credentials or your process. You lead with the human experience of working with you. A hook for that piece of content might sound something like this. She came to us with a vision, a very opinionated mother, and absolutely no idea how to make both of them happy. Here's how it went. That is convert content built for the human connection buyer. Moving on to buyer number 3, the spontaneous buyer. This third type of buyer in your audience operates very differently from the first 2. They don't need a detailed process breakdown or to feel deeply understood. They need to feel the excitement of what's possible. They're responding to energy, momentum, and bold results. They want to see the dramatic before and after. They want to feel the buzz of the transformation before they have time to overthink it. If you bury the exciting result under 6 paragraphs of context, you'll lose them before they even get there. What they need from your content is a vivid, exciting picture of what's possible for them. Lead with the result and get to the good part fast. Here's what that looks like in practice. You run a brand photography studio. A spontaneous buyer convert post opens with the result, not the backstory. She came to us with a folder of stock photos and left with a full brand gallery that stopped her ideal clients mid-scroll. The shoot took 4 hours and inquiries flooded in that same week. Short, exciting, specific. They can feel the possibility before they have time to second guess. A hook for that piece of content might sound something like this. 4 hours, a full brand gallery, inquiries the same week. That is convert content built for the spontaneous buyer. Finally, moving on to buyer type number 4, which is the scarcity buyer. The 4th buyer type has often been sitting on the fence the longest. They know they need your help, they like your content, and have probably saved a few of your posts, telling themselves they'll reach out next month. And then next month arrives and they tell themselves the same thing again. This is the scarcity buyer. And what finally tips them over the line isn't more content about what you offer, it's content that gives them a genuine reason to act now rather than later. I want to be really clear here about the word genuine. This buyer has been marketed to their entire life and they can smell manufactured urgency from a mile away. Fake countdown timers, artificial limited availability, only 3 spots left when there are actually 20. They've seen it all before and it doesn't work on them. Worse than not working, it actually destroys their trust in your brand. The only scarcity content that converts this buyer is honest. Real availability, real deadlines, and real consequences of waiting. What they need from your content is truthful urgency and a specific reason why now is the time to take action. So here's what that looks like in practice. Say you run a boutique bridal hair and makeup studio and your books are genuinely filling for the upcoming wedding season. A scarcity buyer convert post sounds something like this. We currently have 3 Saturday dates remaining for the spring wedding season. If your date falls between October and December and you've been thinking about reaching out, now is the time. Our books fill earlier than most brides expect and we'd hate for you to miss out. It's honest, specific, and genuinely useful information for a bride who is already considering you. If you don't have genuine scarcity right now, you can use the cost of inaction content instead. What does another month of waiting actually cost them in leads, lost time, or missed opportunity? That is honest urgency and it works just as powerfully. A hook for that piece of content might sound something like this. If you've been thinking about it, this is the sign. That is convert content built for the scarcity buyer. Now, here's the practical framework for putting all of this into action. Every month when you sit down to plan your convert content, run through these 4 buyer types before you finalize anything. Have I created something for the person who needs proof before they'll move? That's your analytical buyer. Have I created something for the person who needs to feel seen and understood before they reach out? That's your human connection buyer. Have I created something for the person who just needs to feel the excitement of what's possible for them? That's your spontaneous buyer. And do I have a genuine reason to act now that I can share honestly? That's your scarcity buyer. You don't need 4 separate convert posts every single week, but across your convert content for the month, you should aim to speak to all 4 buyer types. Because here's the thing I want you to really sit with. Every one of those people was ready. The analytical buyer had done their research and was close to a decision. The human connection buyer had been saving your posts for months. The spontaneous buyer was at a breaking point and just needed someone to say yes to right now. And the scarcity buyer had been meaning to reach out since January. All 4 of them were ready. They just never got the right nudge, and so they stayed on the fence, or worse, they found someone else who gave them what they needed. That is what's at stake when your convert content only speaks to one type of buyer. So let me leave you with this. Creating convert content that actually converts isn't about posting more or being more salesy or pushy. It's about understanding that the warm audience you've worked so hard to build contains 4 different people all ready to say yes, but all needing something slightly different to get them over the line. When you create content that speaks to all 4, something shifts. The inquiries become more consistent, the right clients start reaching out, and Instagram actually starts working the way it was meant to, as a business tool that brings the right people to your door. If you've been listening to this episode and you're not completely sure whether your Instagram is set up to generate inquiries, I want to invite you to take my free Instagram assessment. It takes less than 3 minutes and it'll show you exactly where the gaps are in your current Instagram strategy and what you should be focusing on first. The link is in the show notes, so go ahead and take that now while it's fresh. And if you're ready to stop figuring this all out alone and you want a strategic partner who can take Instagram off your plate and turn it into a consistent inquiry channel for your business, I'd love to have a chat with you. Book your free call with me and we'll look at where you're at, where you want to be, and whether we're the right fit to work together. That link is also in the show notes. Thank you so much for tuning in. If this episode resonated, take a screenshot and share it on your Instagram stories. Don't forget to tag me at Andrea Marie Creative because I love to see who's listening and chatting with you over there. And if you haven't already, follow the show. You can follow us on Instagram. Again, it's at Andrea Marie Creative. And you can follow the show on Spotify or Apple Podcasts so that you never miss an episode. If you really want to make my day, you can leave me a rating and review because it really helps the show to grow and reach more business owners. I hope you have an amazing week and I'll catch you in the next one.